So thanks for stopping by today. I appreciate you for coming by. We'll just get right to it. We know you sent over an op-ed to us on Friday discussing Brian Kemp's pursuit of discrediting minorities. And you said it is disheartening to witness a leader who should be focused on the betterment of our state instead of prioritizing political gain by targeting minorities. My question to you is, do you believe Governor Kemp's actions are a nod to the recent Supreme Court decisions regarding DEI initiatives and the ending of affirmative action?
Yeah, that's a great question. The reality is that, he made this statement maybe a few months back. And when he made the statement, it hit the AJC, and I was appalled by it. Then here are the people who he's going to target. Because when you take it a little deeper, as you say, okay, it's Democrat against Republican. It's not that. You're talking about the best. These are some bright, smart people who happen to be people of color. And if you're that tone deaf that you can't see that these are not the people who you should be calling out in the paper, there's something wrong with that. And so as we are dealing with DEI, the Supreme Court decision, affirmative action being rolled back, it plays into a larger narrative, not just in the state of Georgia, but in the nation, is that you cannot, no longer can we ever afford to say that we're going to target certain people for political gain and leave other folk alone. It's not right. And so I wanted to just call attention to that, to say that we're not going to have that in Georgia. Georgia's a changing state. I was here before. 1 million people plus have moved into Georgia in the last 10 years. 95% of people of color. And so it's unconscionable that you would actually say these are the people that we're going to target. It's not right. It's not okay. And he needs to be called out for it.
Absolutely. Representatives Al, Jasmine Clark, and Farouk Mughal, I think those three districts are being targeted by the GOP. And I don't think that's, I don't think it's no accident.
Right.
But what say you?
Yeah, I know it's no accident. Listen, those districts, they'll say, well, they're because they're marginal districts and we can probably win them. No, you're not. The trends in those districts, as we'll see, the trends in those districts are that more people of color are moving into those districts, more diverse folk, people coming from different areas, and not just people of color, but white folk as well are moving into these areas, but they don't come with the same sort of baggage that we've had in Georgia for a long time. And so people are coming here trying to look for a better opportunity, and Democrats resonate to that. I mean, people resonate to Democratic value propositions in the state of Georgia. We got to get out more and tell them what our value prop is. I get that. Part of the reason why I'm here today. But the reality is that in this space and time is that Georgia's changing very rapidly, and that those districts, you ought to leave them alone and try to shore up the districts that y'all need to protect and not come after the people that we want to serve and protect all of Georgia.
Absolutely. Speaking of 2024, recently, State Representative Shay Roberts, I ran into her a few days ago, actually. She held a rally in Blue Ridge, Marjorie Taylor Greene's territory. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for Georgia Democrats to turn out to vote in what we consider to be ruby red districts?
It's a 10. It's a 10, man. It is a 10. It's a 10. It's a 10. And the reason why is because every incremental vote, every one vote we get is one vote toward changing the state of Georgia. And so let's say, for instance, you're in a district that, a Democrat may not be able to win the district because 80% Republican is entrenched and da-da-da. Well, okay, maybe 80%, but what if we said we can get it to 77%? That 3% change is a big number. And so what we need to do is have Democrats get enthused about, hey, I'm adding to the larger voting total. And statewide, that makes a lot of sense. In presidential elections, when the next governor's race is going to happen, lieutenant governor, all the statewide stuff, if we can get that extra 2-3%, all of a sudden the state of Georgia changes very rapidly. So we want to make sure that we're saying to these areas, y'all come out and vote because you're adding to, as they say, look, rising tides raise all ships.
Right.
And this is a part of a rising tide, right? A blue wave, I like to call it. And that's what's going to happen in the state of Georgia. So what Shay did and in that space is phenomenal. And so we want to continue to do that around the state, and we will.
Speaking of statewide and all that good stuff, as we sit here today, there's a good chance that Donald Trump could be indicted in the next 24 to 48 hours within that time space. You and I, we lived through what was alleged and, dare I say, witnessed it with the fake elector scheme and all that good stuff. Governor Kemp, he says he's going to align with anybody who can beat Biden in 2024, which presumably would be Donald Trump right now. Trump has also demonized African Americans and the right to vote and the African American vote in Georgia, and we saw that with the phone call, which is the nexus of the indictment. What are we doing? Because I know is very important to the Atlanta Voice, the right to vote and the sanctity of the vote and the equitable access to vote. Is that fight still top of mind within the Georgia Democratic Party right now? And if so, tell us about it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that is, as you said, the right to vote is sacred. And people died for the right to vote. And so it is a sacred, solemn space when you walk into that voting booth for us as Democrats. And everyone should have the right to participate in free and fair elections. That said, what the Georgia House Democrats are doing is we are fighting on multiple fronts. Number one is the election. Remember, they tried to change the election boards. And so the election boards play a big role in how you vote. If you have partisan folk, Republicans, who are trying to change election boards, and you watch it around the state of Georgia, they're trying to change them, and they are changing them right now. We're fighting against that. So you can't change the election board and say, okay, we're going to wipe off all the Democrats, and we're going to say it's nonpartisan. We can just say the county commission gets a chance to choose.
Right.
Even in Bibb County, they were trying to do that. We squashed it. Like, no, that's not going to happen. The election board is going to stay where it's going to stay. Polls closing, right? Closing polls early has a deleterious effect on voting. And so we're fighting to extend polling hours so that people have the right to vote. The voting purge. Think about all the people they're purging off the rolls right now.
That's very true.
Man, we're fighting tooth and nail about that now. We leaned into that. Now, that is happening right now. But these are examples where, look, Democrats are doing the fight. The problem is we don't have the communication apparatus to tell people what we're doing, so it's hard to bring people into what we're doing. But the reality is that we're at war, and it is a very serious thing that we're doing right now because the right to vote is absolutely the most sacred thing you can do in this country. And so we're fighting very hard on those fronts.
Absolutely. And speaking of the media apparatus, we're seeing in real time the former president try to establish this narrative of reform and violence and a potential civil war based on, Fonnie Willis and Jack Smith and Tanya Chutkin in D.C., all holding him accountable for his actions. And as Trump prepares to fight to conduct this trial in the media, what are the Georgia Democrats doing to fight that fight now and also presumably heading into 2024?
Yeah, so the fight, it's an interesting proposition, right? Because you got to say, like, he wants to bring dissent into sort of his cultural warfare, because he believes that cultural warfare would be the saving grace for him, his own hide. That's foolishness,
right?
And it's not going. I mean, it's going to work for some people because they feel left out. And so whenever you have us against them, there's always a fight when it's us against them. But what is the we? The real proposition for us is, what is the we in this moment? The we in the state of Georgia right now is that we understand that a few things are going to happen. One is we're going to have to redraw the map in Georgia because of what happened in Alabama, right? Which is the Supreme Court decision. And so with the PSC in Alabama is now in Georgia, where we have to redraw potentially a congressional map, Senate map, and House map. There's some ideas right now that suggest that we may pick up one congressional seat. We may pick up 3 Senate seats. We may pick up 5 House seats this year. If that happens, the whole game changes.
Right.
Because now we're right there. And that's our fight right now is like, how do we get people to come out and vote, to talk about what is our proposition for making the economy better, based on who's in charge. And that's where we're fighting. So right now, that is coming up in the next, we should be back. I don't know, maybe 2 months. I'll come back and talk to you a little bit more once we know what the court's going to do. But that's where we are right now. So we're fighting that war right now on multiple fronts. We're trying to increase our representation in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would be remiss for you being here. I would be remiss if I don't pose this question to you. Mesha Mainor. For those that don't know, she switched parties during the summer, I think before the July 4th holiday that happened. No, after July 4th that happened. And it rocked literally Atlanta and the rest of the state. The only person that's on record to make any kind of statement was Nikema Williams, Democratic Party chair of Georgia, and also the U.S. rep for Atlanta in Congress. Would like to give you the floor if you choose to make any statement about Representative Mainor's decision. If not, then that's okay.
Who? That's all I got.
Hey, well said. She also, during the session, you and I, we discussed during the session, one of the major points of contention was the school voucher bill. And she made her stance known that she supports vouchers, even though she's, I think, the next district down from me and on Atlanta's west side. So you can pretty much say, like, yeah, there's no way that you give kids $6,500. How are they going to get around? Are the parents going to be involved? Da, 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 da. That's all beside the point. But the fact is that there's a good chance that the Republicans are going to bring this up again in 2024. Mainor said of School Choice in June, quote, "If people have the nerve to actually stand up and do what their constituents want, we very well could pass this in the next legislative session." She was on record saying that. What are your thoughts about that? Because again, this was a contentious issue towards the end of this year's session, and more than likely this will come up again in January.
Yeah, so we formed what you saw in that bill. The reason why it was defeated is contrary to the representative's statement, is that you had folk in South Georgia, Republicans, Democrats in North Georgia. You had folk who are independent who came together and said, this is ridiculous. So it wasn't just Democrats. We only had 79 members in the House. You have to have 90 to get a bill passed, or you have to have the majority to pass a bill. It didn't happen. What happened was Democrats, with the exception, the person who you mentioned, and Republicans together said, no, this is ridiculous. So there were white Republicans in South Georgia, in Middle Georgia, and in North Georgia saying, absolutely not, this is ridiculous. Because what we really saw was this: $6,500 will only benefit people who have more than $6,500 to send their kid to school. Mm-hmm. If you have to send your kid to school and you live in a black community, 9 times out of 10 you have to supply transportation to the said school. Well, there's 5 things. I say this all day, every day in my life. There are 5 things you will not find in a black community that makes $60,000 or less. You'll not find these 5 things. Number 1, you won't find in combination fresh produce. You won't find transportation to get you to a living wage job if you don't have a car. So transportation becomes an issue. You won't find a bank. You won't find a doctor. And you won't find a school you want to send your kid to. That's structural. Mm-hmm. And so when we start thinking about pulling the kids out or taking the money out of these areas that are already impoverished and moving that money somewhere else, how do you deal with the other 4 factors? Let's say we get them in a great school and it's $10,000. So somebody has to come up with the money to make the difference. 65, right? Doesn't exist. I don't know a school in Atlanta That's a private school that you can go to school for $6,500, and that they'll come pick you up from your house and take you.
Yeah, I don't either.
How? It's foolishness. And the same thing happens in rural Georgia. You're going to take money out of that school system that are already hurting and put it into a private school. That $6,500 leaves. And that is not wise, because they're dealing with some of the same issues that inner cities are dealing with. How do I even get my kid to that place if it's on me? And so it's a false premise, and that's why the coalition stayed together. It was a big victory for Democrats. I got some real warriors and real soldiers in the Democratic Party, youngsters, the older folk. We have a strong party, and y'all gonna see more of us as we move forward. But that's how we beat that, because that is not gonna change. Unless the dynamics of that conversation changes, that bill is going nowhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Final question. Thank you for taking the time. I'm greatly appreciative. What's one thing on your mind right now as we're exiting out of summer, heading in towards the fall and ultimately the last quarter of the year? What's one thing on your mind that you want to leave viewers and readers and the concerned public alike? What do you want them to know that's just top of mind right now?
Yeah, top of mind right now it is reapportionment and redistricting. We're in a place where on September 5th, the court is going to start to hear arguments about, should we have another congressional seat that black people get to choose that congressman or congresswoman. So that would move us from 5 to 6. The argument is also going to be, should black people have the ability to choose up to 3 Senate seats? So that moves that number. In the House, same argument is going to happen September 5th. Maybe it goes a couple weeks. The same argument is going to happen. We should be able to pick up 5 House seats. Let's put that in perspective. Right now, we're at 79 minus a former. We'll get that one back. Mm-hmm. So if you add 5 to 79, we're at 84. In order to say that the House we have in a majority, you have to get to 90. So we're 6 seats away. Mm-hmm. And the forecasts already show that we're going to pick those seats up over time. We may not get them next year, but if we move to 84, now you have a blended government and all bets are off, because now we can negotiate in good faith for the betterment of our folk in our communities. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing that's top of mind right now, and gearing up for that is, it's going to cost a lot of money, got a lot of legal stuff going on. And so I got to raise money and let the public know. But here's what we really need to do. We got to get people to say, we want an additional congressional seat. We want 3 Senate seats at a minimum. We want 5 House seats at a minimum. If we can get the public to really rally around that, man, we'll have good opportunity to change the state of Georgia real quick.
Absolutely. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
James Beverly, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this is the Atlanta Voice.